podcast.
Hey guys, Mark and Julie here again for Anothen Reflections for July,
August.
We are in August already of 2023.
What has happened to the year?
I know, it is flying by. And as always, we are so thankful to the Lord for every single one of you being on this journey with us as we say on our sign-off, go further and deeper into encounters with our Father's perfect love. And we're doing that together, and it is such a privilege and an honor to be able to do that. Just the people that we get to enjoy this journey with truly is humbling and honoring. So thank you, every single one of you, for being on this journey with us. So we're just going to, as you know, from our last reflection, we're just going to sort of touch on a few points as we go through, plus some things that we've been hearing from the Lord. And sharing that as well.
Plus a little bit of housekeeping at the front end.
Yeah, exactly right. So firstly with the giving, our giving is going up. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you for your faith in partnering with us as we've been seeing the giving element start to go up. I think we were averaging around about 7,500 a month at the start of the year. And our budget is around 11,000 a month. So as you could well imagine, that is not too sustainable. But yet here we are now, and we've just tipped over 9,000 a month now. Okay. So we're around about that couple of thousand to 1,900 a month off. So again, if you're considering partnering with us, and then the reoccurring one is really helpful to us. You'll see that on the little ticker below there, the pushpay.com/g/Anothen will give you that option. So we just thank you for partnering with us. And if you haven't partnered with us before, please would you consider taking that time to ask the Lord and praying into that, because it's what keeps this thing going as we have the honor together to impact people around the world. Yeah. Speaking of impact around the world, our broadcasts on Sunday have been pretty amazing. And we've literally just got off one.
We have, yes. We've been talking with Steve and Julie Brown this morning. Just go and watch it. It's too hard to sum up, and it'll take too much time. But YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. All have it archived, so you should be able to find it on any one of those platforms. One of the things that I love about the this new platform, because this is a new way of doing this for us. It's we're into our second month of doing it this way now. What I really like about this platform is that we can still have all of the people on the call like we did with the Zoom call, but we do know that not everybody loves to be on the screen and out there. Right. We can have all of the people on the call and nobody's seen. Right, exactly. Unless they want to be, and unless we bring them on. So that's one of the pluses. But the other plus that I really, really like, and that I think has been really powerful on a number of occasions, we're still kind of getting into the rhythm of it a little bit, but is that we can meet before the call. We open the call from about 10:30 onwards. That's and if you want to, and you have the time to jump on beforehand so that you can meet the guest that we're going to be speaking with, and you can pray for them. You know, you can be part of that. But then during the broadcast, you can be listening from heaven, and we've been encouraging people to hang around after the broadcast as well, and just have a time of prayer and releasing some encouraging words and some words of knowledge and wisdom over the guests that just really blesses them. Yeah, it does. But it also gives all of you guys the opportunity to be connected globally the same way that we have been, and that's something that we're really excited about. So just want to encourage you to consider that if there's time around. We do realize that we've kind of gone, we've taken our hour on a Sunday and we've extended it quite some, but if you've got that time, and if the timing is an issue, then maybe we can look at playing with the timing of the broadcast and shortening that a bit so that we can still get that piece in, because it's really important for that connectivity. Yeah, one of the things that's really powerful about the broadcast is there's something being modeled before you that is really, really key. And this is something that you will miss typically on a Sunday morning. And I'm not shying away from bringing this out. And the reality is what's being modeled before you is how to hear from heaven in the moment. So we come into these broadcasts with effectively a blank canvas. We might
have a few questions that we might ask if we get stuck, but really we go nowhere near the questions for the most part. What happens is the content from heaven comes through the conversation. And so through connection together and connection with the people that we are connecting with on the broadcast, we get to hear the sound of heaven, and this fresh sound of heaven gets to be released. And that's one of the things that we really want to be able to encourage people in your communities where you're meeting in community, is listening to heaven together. That content comes out of connection. And it's amazing to see. And even if you stepped on to today's one, if you're watching this later on in August, go back to July 30, because that's when we're recording this one. You'll just see that happen again and again and again. It just flows out in these conversations. So we really encourage you to in your communities to practice listening to heaven together, and then sharing what you're each hearing and allowing that to be part of the content driver of what gets activated within for your transformation that then you deliver to others throughout the course of the week.
Because in this day and age, the way that Christianity is viewed by the world, Christians, people who believe in God, people who follow Jesus, whatever label you want to put on yourself for that, we need to learn how to have respectful conversations. We need to learn how to hear the wisdom of heaven in those conversations, so that we're not... So that, yes, the gospel is offensive, and I can hear that argument coming out all the time anyway, but it doesn't mean that we have to be offensive or set out to offend. And I think that if we can learn to have those respectful conversations and learn to hear from heaven in the moment, it's a tool that the body of Christ needs in this day and age, and I believe is part of the greater things that Jesus said we would go on to do. He didn't live in this day and age. What he did on the earth was amazing and astounding, and I have no doubt that if he lived in this period on earth, he would be still doing the same thing. But here's the beauty of it: he manifests through us. He loves the world through us, as we say every single week. So if he's in us and we are learning how to depend on him in those moment by moment conversations, it's a really big deal, and a good tool to have. So no, it's good. So the weekly email that's coming out, keep an eye out on that, and there's a number of things in there. Like we've said, we put forward there the link for the broadcast every week, along with a bit of a bio, so you know who's coming in. These are friends of Anothen, people that we've met all over the world, 50 leaders, 14 nations. There are a whole heap more we haven't even asked yet that we're looking at bringing in over the course of next year and following on. Now there's others that we're in conversation with that are going, hey, could we possibly be on there too, because we love what you're doing. So it looks like we've got no shortage of phenomenal leaders in their spaces from literally all over the world. I was on a call with a guy who's got ministry in Cambodia in the sex trafficking, anti-sex trafficking space. That again, he says, hey, can I possibly come on? So we're looking in January, bringing him on, and he's connected into Cambodia, so we'll get to hear all the things coming out. It's just, there's more and more, and kingdom people that are in the middle of living out loud the reality of Jesus in this world and the love of the Father interacting with people. So don't miss it. And that link is there. I'll make it clear. If you can't find it, just message us or email us or whatever, but we put it right there on the email. If you missed the week, don't worry. Scroll right down towards the bottom of that email. You're going to find last week's there. Grab a hold of that. Also, fresh testimonies. If you've got a fresh story from what God is doing in your life, please email us at info@anothen.co. With that, we would love to get those out there every week. I want a fresh testimony of what God is doing in this world. So please shoot those through to us as well, because this is fast becoming a hub of the current sound of heaven in the nations of the earth. So we don't want you to miss any of it. Want you to be in the middle of the action with us. Get your hands on it through the broadcast and meeting the people. This isn't just sit back and watch, but you get to interact, you get to release, you get to bless so many different ways. And then in your own community, inviting people into that as well. The Anothen global community is growing.
Yeah, it is.
I think, and that's
it's really cool.
That's the exciting thing about it. But not only is that community growing, but the connection between them is getting stronger. And I think that's the other part that's really, really key. If we're talking about unity in the body, and we're talking about connecting, and we're talking about what is happening all around the world. God is doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's good.
And he's repeating it over and over and over and over and over again in multiple different places around the globe. And the conversations that we have here on our broadcast on the Power of New podcast is highlighting that story of God. It's connecting us to everywhere in the world, because what we're hearing coming out of the UK and what we're hearing coming out of Africa and what we're hearing coming out of all the different countries and nations that we're connected with is the same thing that we're hearing here.
Yeah, that's right.
God is doing something really big in unifying his people around the world, and this is a platform that you can be a part of that,
right, and be mobilized,
and be really mobilized in it. And again, I'm just going to give another plug for the beginning and the end of the broadcast. If you're here on the call with us, that you actually have that opportunity and that platform to be connected, and
get in the game and connect with leaders in the world, and you get to release heaven through them.
I was just going to say, you've got some stuff on community, because we're talking about our global community is growing, but community also means at a local level and what's happening at a local level. And you've had some thoughts and reflections around
I have,
around community.
And these are still ideating. They're still sort of percolating in the mind, but it's actually to do with the nature of individual personal salvation and how it relates to community. And there's been a pendulum swing that's taken place, because we go right back and we had, the community in the early church, but then we had Constantine, and then everything got centralized, and then we see the excesses of that centralization that turned into control, and therefore people were told what to think, how to think, and even then it was like, then it turned into Latin, so you couldn't even think. It was just like you turn up and you do these things, and somehow that's salvation. Well, enter the Enlightenment, which then emphasized the individual a lot more, and we see this pendulum swing go the other way. So I wrote a little bit down today about the Enlightenment, because most of us know it was a period of time, but when was it? And what actually happened in it?
Some of us don't even know that was part of the church history, and that's what it's called.
Yeah,
so.
and I share this because hopefully it helps. I know it helps me to put a mirror up to myself as I then go, but what are we called to today? And all of that. So here's a little bit that I just wrote. It says, the Enlightenment of the 17th and 18th centuries significantly affected personal salvation, reshaping how people understood and pursued their spiritual journeys. Emphasizing reason and individual autonomy, it encouraged critical thinking about religious beliefs. Traditional rituals and sacraments were de-emphasized in favor of personal moral behavior. Virtue and ethics became central to spiritual well-being. Religious tolerance and pluralism exposed individuals to diverse beliefs, while some thinkers redefined the concept of God and the divine relationship. The period also sparked intellectual inquiry, leading to questioning of traditional religious doctrines related to salvation. While many, if not all these impacts were positive, over time they have morphed into something other. They have morphed at times into borderline Christian humanism, to the point where personal salvation is near on deified at the expense of experiencing God through connection in community. So it's swung all the way up the other end. The result of this can be a church that chases after the benefits of God more so than the person of Christ himself revealed through people in community. And so that's been a really key thing for me as I've been trying to think through, okay, we're called to establish micro communities. And I believe in personal salvation, don't get me wrong, but we've got to be careful just how far up this end that we swing. And we start to see it in the lyrics of worship tunes and things as well. Lots of me, my, I, but where is that with the community element, the actually experiencing God in community. The Old Testament was was about trying to have God be in community with his people. The Old Testament law was there so that God could be in some sort of community with his people. That was the whole purpose of it. And so the nature of God in community is just profound. And when that temple curtain got torn, and now God's dwelling place was in our hearts. Not that we could run off individually and go, I've got Jesus with me and me alone. No, we together get to experience a much fuller revelation of our salvation and who he is through one another. So this content that forms out of connection becomes a really key part. We don't get it if we don't have connection.
Right.
And so being intentional about that, the relationships in community is vitally important. And there's a journal entry I won't bother going into so much now, but it speaks particularly about chasing after the benefits of God instead of the heart of God himself. And it's around the whole time where the guards, the soldiers, were gambling over Jesus's underpants and
undergarments. We just kind of, I feel a little bit disrespectful saying it's underpants.
Well, I think it actually it appropriately speaks to how debasing Christianity can come when we chase after the mere benefits of God. You've got the Son of God dying for them on a cross right there, and they placed less value in that than they did on the temporal garments that were in front of them. And when we chase after his benefits, then we actually reduce Christianity to almost this debased, I don't know, it's just this thing that I certainly don't want anything to do with.
That's true.
It becomes these systems and norms and forms and this subculture of language and these, just like, seriously, I have no interest in that. I've got better things to do with my time. What I've got a lot of interest in is pursuing the person of Christ in community through one another that actually impacts and changes me as a result of the Jesus I meet.
Right. And I think something you said earlier when you were reading out that little blurb on the Enlightenment about the sacraments being put to one side and the emphasis being placed on individual moral behavior and accountability.
Right.
We've somehow managed to now think about salvation as a transaction. If I behave rightly, then I deserve the benefits of God, which isn't. It's not quite it.
So the Enlightenment has pendulum swung to entitlement.
To entitlement. That's right. That's true. That's true, because we actually don't deserve anything. That's the whole point. We don't deserve. If we deserve anything, we deserve to be cut off from God because we all have sinned and we all have fallen short. So yeah, I think there's a both and thing that we still need the sacraments. It's not that we need to swing away from that, and we still need moral accountability, and we still need to behave well. They're still good, and we still need to do those things, but it's not one or the other, and it's certainly not I deserve this because I've behaved in a certain way.
So I think an encouragement we want to give to all of you is, first of all, if you're not in a community and you're part of our email list and part of the Anothen journey, then please plug into one. If there's not a community right where you are, then please reach out to us at info@anothen.co, because we got tools freely to give you to help you get started. It's not rocket science, so it's very, very simple, very easy to start forming community right where you are. And we're here to help you and support you any way we can. If you are part of a community already, then we encourage you to ask a new question, and that is, how do I find Jesus, or who is Jesus revealing himself to be to us together as we sit and learn from one another and actually learn about him from one another. So actually asking questions, ensuring everybody gets a chance to share something about their journey with Jesus that week, and then collectively to go, oh my, that's what he's saying to all of us together as all these pieces come to pass. And don't just sort of turn up once every so often. Make a habit of being together, of sowing in and finding ways to love and live life together with Jesus in community. Also, to encourage you to find others to join and to be a part of that with you. Let's not become so insular and closed, but instead to open ourselves up and to continue the process of inviting others into that space as well.
I think I'd go so far as to say that even if you are already part of a community that hasn't practiced this way before, it might be a community that you come together, but you haven't actually gone deep enough in relationship and unity to actually get to a place. One of the things we were talking about just now on the podcast was that sense of community when you get together with God's people who are seeking nothing but his face. The security to be vulnerable in that place is different than just turning up to a Bible study and putting on our very best Christian mask that has everything all together and everything all good, instead of just answering, I'm fine, every time somebody asks. It's actually, okay, no, let's actually look at behaving in community the way that Jesus taught us to behave in community, which is loving one another unconditionally. So,
you've got some thoughts on faith, and then we'll let these people get out of here. But what are some of the thoughts you've got there around faith? You've been sharing with me as well.
I've been reading through Matthew again, and I've made so many notes in my Bible. You won't be able to see it, but I've written in the margins, and I've kind of put sticky notes in, and I've just written so many things. But it's interesting to me, the faith journey that I've been on and the layers that God's been revealing over years as I've been reading through these parables and these stories. But so as I said, in Matthew we have the story of Peter walking on the water, when Jesus walks on the water and he calls him out of the boat. We have the story of Jesus calming the storm. We have the story of the disciples not being able to cast out the demon from the son of the man who came to Jesus after the Mount of Transfiguration. We've got all of these stories that talk about faith. And there's been a couple of interesting things that just keep lifting out to me all the time. Those who were closest to Jesus, those who walked closest to Jesus, the disciples, were the ones that he always accused of having little faith.
Isn't that curious?
And the ones who were not actually close in relationship with Jesus, but who had already come convinced of his lordship and his nature and his character, they were the ones whose faith astounded him, like the Roman centurion, like the Syrophoenician women. They were Gentiles. They weren't even Jews, and they were the ones that Jesus commended for their faith and said, he was astounded, he was amazed by their faith. I have not seen this kind of faith in all of Israel. That kind of thing has just really jumped out at me a number of times as I've read through the stories. Yeah,
I'm just conscious of something you had just said about Jesus, offending people. What I find interesting in what you just said then is that he offended the followers oftentimes more than he offended those that weren't the followers, those that were seeking him. Now, isn't that a mirror to hold up? And perhaps today, Jesus is offending the church more than actually he offends the world.
Right.
And I don't know, maybe there's something in there just to take away and consider. It was just an interesting thought as you were just sharing that.
Could certainly be an interesting thought. I think we're offended because we have our own view of what it should look like. And when Jesus comes along and says, no, actually, that's not how it should look like, we're offended by that.
Right.
Which, as we've talked about before, if you fall in the pit of offense, if you find yourself in the poo, you got to get out of there as quick as you can, because it's not pleasant.
No, that's right.
So anyway, but
so
some of the other layers of faith that I've kind of been peeling back, if you like, as I've been reading through, and one that's just come in the last few days. When Peter stepped out of the boat and Jesus accuses him of having little faith, why did you doubt? I'd written a note a little while ago that talked about Peter was probably more afraid of the storm that was within him than he was of the physical storm around him. The chaos that was in him, I've seen this guy. I know what he can do. He didn't doubt Jesus's abilities. He knew what Jesus could do. He'd seen the feeding of the 5,000. He'd seen the healing of all of the sick people, and he'd seen the lame walk, and he'd seen the deaf hear and the blind see and all that kind of stuff. He'd seen all of that. He didn't doubt Jesus's abilities. What I believe he doubted was Jesus's nature and character towards him in that moment. And you know, I believe you can do it, Lord. I don't doubt your abilities, but will you do it for me?
There's the question.
Will you do it for me in this moment? Because I really need you right now. And that, I think, was the seat of Peter's doubt in that moment. But that also just lifted out something else for me as I'm reading through all of these things. I'm reading in Matthew 17 and verse 20, and the disciples had just approached Jesus and said, "Why couldn't we drive out that demon?" So this is after the Mount of Transfiguration. Yeah. And Jesus says, "Because of your little faith, for I assure you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will tell this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. However, this kind does not come out except by prayer and fasting." And I've written in my Bible here a little asterisk that says, dig your well deep. It's not something that you can just kind of, oh, hello, I'm just going to apply a prayer to that one.
Right.
I actually have to have something to dig from. I've got to cultivate a relationship. I've got to dig my well deep. Yeah. And that's been something that I've, you probably heard me say many, many times. But faith in who Jesus is cultivated by prayer and fasting. It's cultivated by nurturing that relationship with God. I'm actually going to have this conversation with God every day. I'm actually going to do these spiritual disciplines so that I can build this relationship with God. The more we know about God, the more we know him, the more we cultivate our relationship with the Godhead, the more our faith in who he is grows. So I've written down here, Jesus refers to faith as small as a mustard seed moving mountains. I think this refers to not only getting the smallest, I've written around the corner, excuse me, the smallest glimpse or revelation. Okay. Let me start again. Jesus's reference to faith as small as a mustard seed moving mountains, I think this refers to only getting the smallest glimpse or revelation or understanding of his nature and character, and that will cause us to be so confident in him, in who he is, that we will not be shaken. Moving mountains becomes a way of life. Yeah, it only takes a mustard seed sized revelation of who he is for us to be confident in who he is. Yep, and when Jesus is saying to Peter, you of little faith, why did you doubt? And reassuring them, it only takes a mustard seed. It only takes the smallest revelation. What they're saying is, the mirror he's holding up to them is, you haven't had that revelation of how good I am yet. You just don't know me the way that I really want to be known by you. Yeah.
And you're gonna find it when you step in.
When you step into that and nurture that relationship with me. And so anyway, that's kind good. Of my whole little journey on faith is just another layer of, it's the smallest revelation. Yeah. The smallest revelation of how amazing he is will make me so confident that nothing will stand in my way. Yeah. Nothing will be impossible because it's him. Because it's him.
Yeah. And the thing is with faith too, as we've shared before here, is that faith is always going to be appropriated. Are you going
where are you
going to appropriate it? And maybe some of that, you of little faith, is you have put such a little bit of the faith I've given you in him. Right. But what do we do with the rest of it? We put it in ourselves. Right. Because we're insecure. Well, I've got to take matters into my own hands.
Right. But then I would argue, is that actually faith? Because that small mustard seed revelation of who he is enough to move mountains, whereas all the faith that I've got
Yep.
in me,
Mm-hmm.
all the faith in the world. It can be tons and tons
Yep.
and tons of it, and it's still not going to move
Counts for
mountains in
naught.
the same way.
That's right. It leads to frustration, not mountains.
It really does, or mountains of frustration that
right.
can't be moved.
Hey, there's a word right
there. You go.
That's pretty good.
So yeah, faith. I think for me is hand in hand with intimacy.
Yeah.
Because the more you grow your intimacy with God, the greater your faith will be.
And that then comes back into, well, what do you do with that? Well, that's where the community comes in, because now you share the testimonies, the fresh testimonies.
Now we need each other.
We do, exactly.
We can't just do this on our own.
That's
because
right. And my story will bless you, and your story will bless me.
Yeah.
And now together our faith rises. Mm-hmm. And when we do that in community, then our community's faith rises, because the revelation of who he is maybe a revelation that might have taken us, to step on through 1,000 things that we didn't. Suddenly we've got the benefit of that revelation because someone else has already stepped through those things, and then the things you've stepped through, someone else hasn't. But you get to bring that revelation that goes, oh my goodness, you've just saved me years with what you've just said, right? This is the beauty of seeing Jesus in the midst. And personal salvation, yes, but the community, Jesus in community, it raises the tide of faith.
Yeah,
it does as we grow together. I love that.
It does.
I love that. It's good stuff. So quick recap. Remember, if you're considering partnering with Anothen, can we take the time to pray into that as we see our budget needle move from 9 to 11. And so we thank you so much for your contributions and your generosity and your heart as we are on this crazy journey of bringing the love of the Father to the ends of the earth together. Don't forget, on the emails, you're going to find on our broadcast there, the email link, the broadcast link in the email, so that you can join a half hour before and meet our broadcast guests for that week. As we said, at the moment we have 50 leaders from 14 nations that we're bringing to you that are friends of Anothen, and you get to partner with this global move of what he's doing. And then to stick around at the end of the broadcast and to release anything you've heard from heaven during the broadcast, to bless a prophetic word, a blessing, a word of encouragement, whatever it may be.
And get connected to the global community of Anothen.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And join one right where you are. If you're in one, hey, go deeper still. Bring others into that community with you. If you're not a part of one, reach out to us at info@anothen.co. You'll see that they're on the ticker. And we can help you. We've got all the free tools to help you start a community right where you are. So remember, God wants to take you further and deeper into encounters with his always perfect love for greater impact, because he wants to love the world through you. God bless you guys. We love you. We'll see you again in September for our next Anothen Reflection.